Okay, this is my kidney assignment. So first off, the renal arteries branch from the abdominal aorta to carry blood to the kidneys. And there are three structures of the kidneys. The outer layer called the cortex, the inner layer called the medulla, and a hollow chamber called the renal pelvis, and that joins the kidney with the ureter. So there are approximately 1 million nephrons in each kidney, and they have like a kind of a slender shape. They're kind of really weird shaped. And they kind of are the functional parts of the kidney. Smaller branches from the renal artery, called the afferent arterioles, supply the nephrons with blood. They branch into capillary bed called the glomerulus, and then blood leaves the glomerulus by the efferent arterioles. I know I'm pronouncing all this stuff wrong, but it's fine. So then blood leaves the nephron and joins the renal vein. So next. So the glomerulus is surrounded by a funnel-like part of the nephron called the Bowman's capsule. And the Bowman's capsule is located in the cortex of the kidney. The Bowman's capsule is a cup-like structure that surrounds the glomerulus. And then, so the capsule is connected to a thin tubule called the proximal tubule, and urine is carried from that into the loop of Henle, which descends down into the medulla of the kidney. Urine moves through the distal tubule and the last segment of the nephron into the collecting ducts. The collecting ducts is a tube that carries urine from the nephrons to the renal pelvis. The loop of Henle is the section of the tubule that carries filtrates from the proximal tube to the distal tube. Now, dissolved solutes pass through the walls of the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule, but some materials can't fit through the walls of the glomerulus. So some big ones that can't make it through are like platelets, erythrocytes, and plasma proteins, but some stuff that can make it through is like water, glucose, amino acids, sodium chloride. So that's kind of the basic use of it. And then reabsorption. So that's how it's controlling the water levels in the body. So basically, selective reabsorption occurs by both active and passive transport. Carrier molecules move ions across the cell membrane of cells that line the nephron, and I think that's using osmosis. However, the energy supply is limited. Reabsorption occurs through the threshold level of substance, and then any excess wastes remain in the nephron as excreted with urine. Other molecules are actively transported from the proximal tube. Glucose and amino acids attach to specific carrier molecules, which settle them out of the nephron into the blood. However, the amount of solute that can be reabsorbed is limited. For example, excess glucose will not be taken out of the nephron by the molecules. This means the individual with high glucose in their blood and those who consume large amount of sugars will only excrete some of the excess glucose. The solutes that are actively transported out of the nephron create an osmotic gradient that draws water from the nephron. A second osmotic force created by the proteins not filtered into the nephron also help reabsorption. The proteins remain in the blood stream and draw water from the interstitial fluid into the blood. As water is reabsorbed from the nephron, the remaining solutes become concentrated, and molecules such as the urea and uric acid will diffuse from the nephron back into the blood. Okay, and secretion is the movement of substances from blood into the nephron. Ammonia, excess H ions, and minerals such as K. I don't know what those letters mean because it's chemistry and I'm not good at chemistry, but those ions are examples of substances secreted. Even drugs such as penicillin can be secreted. Cells loaded with mitochondria line the distal tubulum. As in reabsorption, tubule secretion occurs by active transport, but unlike in reabsorption, molecules are shuttled from the blood into the nephron. And then now pH balance. So the kidneys also maintain the pH balance in our bodies. So an acid-base balance is maintained kind of by a system that absorbs H ions, or ions that act as bases. Excess ions from the metabolic process are buffered by bicarbonate ions in the blood. Bicarbonate ions eliminate the excess ions, preventing a change in pH. Carbonic acid is an acid that is produced. In turn, the carbonic acid breaks down to form carbonic dioxide and water. The carbonic dioxide is then transported to the lungs, where much of it is exhaled. The buffer system of the blood removes excess ions. However, it must be restored if the body is to be protected. The kidneys help restore the buffer by reversing the reaction. Carbon dioxide is actively transported from the peritubular capillaries, which is surrounded by the nephron, into the cells that line the nephron. The carbon dioxide combines with water to initiate the reverse reaction, generating ions. I don't know what kind of ions those are, though. Bicarbonate ions diffuse back into the blood, thereby restoring the buffer. The ions recombine with either phosphate ions or ammonia and are excreted with filtrate and nephron. And I think that's it.